Good morning, everyone. We're hoping to get this started early. We were having a few challenges with the streaming using the Facebook Live app, and I found an app called StreamYard that makes this a little bit easier for the interview that I'm hoping to be doing. But with Phillip Polite, hopefully will be joining here shortly. But I was looking at trying to do Facebook Live for this event, and there are a lot of challenges. There are certain things you can only do in the browser, and there's certain things you can only do in the app on the phone, which limits us, which was kind of funny. But on the browser, it wasn't allowing me an option to invite someone to join the call, which was interesting. But when you use the app, you can invite someone to join, and you can have a split screen, and we could see Phillip and we could see me, but you can't. There's no option to schedule it. You can only do it live, which is weird because I looked online, and a lot of videos showed there was a schedule option in the app on your phone or on a tablet. And unfortunately, the schedule button, which is supposed to be near where the go live button is, was not there on my Android. So I don't know if that's something that they've removed or what, but it was very piecemeal. So did more research, and I found this app, StreamYard. And StreamYard gives me the option to tie into my Facebook for free. There's some limitations, and allow me to then invite people to join. And I can have up to 6 people on a call, whereas you can only have 2 doing just the basic Facebook Live. And the only other issue is up in this corner up here. Oops, got a mirror. You see powered by StreamYard. That's part of the free version as well. And unfortunately, that's not a big deal to me whether that shows up there. They can do their free advertising as far as I'm concerned, and it doesn't bother me any. And it costs, but there are some other limitations, like you can only have like 6 hours a month recording of live events, but I won't be doing that many live events that'd be a big deal. Otherwise, it's $20 a month, which really adds up after a while, especially for an independent author like myself, where it's relatively expensive. So we will see here if Phillip joins here shortly. I sent him the link, and hopefully he'll get all the information and be able to get hooked up here. If not, we will try this again another time. But what we're going to talk about is, I've got all my books back here, as you can see behind me here, my book of all the different books I've written through the years. But we've got The Divine Devils, and Phillip did the audio for it, and I think he's coming on now. I'm starting to see him there. Let me add you. Hey, all right. Woohoo! Technology sometimes isn't all that frustrating. So great. So yes, I was telling everyone at the beginning here, while I was kind of filling some space, if anyone's listening, and the way it was working, they may not be listening. They'll have to watch on the recording, but about all the trials and tribulations and the limitations I was running into using just the Facebook Live. And I was watching all kinds of videos last night and trying to figure out, and it's funny how you can only do one in one aspect of Facebook Live, and then only but you're limited in the app. You can do this, but then there's other limitations, and it's like very piecemeal. And I'm an IT person by trade, so I get frustrated really easy when it comes to technology and the problems and everything else. So, well, it's good to meet you sort of in person for the first time. Most people don't know. You and I have just talk through messaging is all we've ever done when it comes to this book. And I've kind of earmarked in my last newsletter, which went out during the week last week, about all the troubles I've had. You were actually the fourth different person to do the narration on this book,
Really?
because I had one person dropped out because his wife got COVID. Another one dropped out because he's got like partway through and then had to drop out for another reason. And the third person really didn't work out well. And he said, "Well, I can't do this." So, okay. So, and I think you put in an audition earlier. And one of the earlier times, I think I picked someone else, and I think that was the third
I did.
person. Yeah, and then I think you maybe even re-recorded. I think you did a. Did you do a second audition as well, or is that someone else I'm thinking of?
I did. No, I did. I did my first one back in February when I first saw your initial posting of the book, and after that, I didn't. I heard from you, but you said you went with somebody else. And then when you put it back up in July or
Right.
June, yeah, you told me you wanted me to redo it because you wanted a different voice for Hunter. So
Ah, Hunter. Yeah. Okay, that's what it was. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
So, okay. Well, we'll get down here. I gave you some questions, but Phillip Polite, right? Pronounce that correctly, the last name?
yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, you did.
Oh, I know people sometimes butcher my last name. Some people say Weir, some people it's Weir, but and I know you had asked that too, but I want to make sure it wasn't French or something, something like that. But tell us a little about yourself, your background,
No, it's actually
and where you're
Jamaican.
from. Jamaican, even. Oh, cool.
Um, yeah, Jamaican on my dad's side. I'm 26, born and raised in Georgia. Um, I guess most of my background as far as work, I've done retail for the most part. I've only been doing narration for about a year now. It'll be a year in December since I started this. And it's just been cool, and it's only really starting to pick up for me now with your book and a couple of the books that I have going on. So, but I'm enjoying it. I really am.
Yeah, I need. Some of these books are challenging. I know that, but what when did you decide to be an audio producer? Uh, what have you always been kind of one of those type of people who you can hear the book in your head and you figure, oh, I can do it wherever and then create it.
Um, I would say whenever I do read a book, even before I started this, I would make up voices for the characters as I read. Um, I guess what I would say really got me going on this is my dad. He passed away a couple years ago, and when he died, I guess I took a introspective look at my life, and I thought, um, you know, I wasn't completely happy with what I was doing. I was more content than I was genuinely happy. So
Hmm.
I decided to look for something that I feel I would genuinely be passionate about doing. And I got into audiobooks during the pandemic. My friend got me onto Audible. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I've been going crazy for like the past few years with them. I had to have like a few hundred books in my library now. It's crazy. And my friend would always be telling me, you could do these books better than these people, man. Like you're doing voices and accents all the time. You should try this.
Right.
And I started a couple classes on Skillshare. I got into Audacity, and I just took it from there. I did a couple practice reels, did some Hamlet, uh, did Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven, just to give myself some practice, and then I just got onto ACX and just started doing auditions.
Yeah, Raven. That's always been one of my One of my favorites, Edgar Allan Poe stuff, was especially this time of year. Halloween, nice and spooky. I always enjoyed the old Simpson Halloween horror. If you ever are Simpson fans out there, but the Halloween horror episodes they do every year at Christmas, and I know they did one with the Raven and a couple of other. I think they had a whole episode that was all Edgar Allan Poe ones. I know they had the Telltale Heart and a couple other things too. But yeah, so it's good. So I'd be curious. Had you read the Divine Devils in advance before you decided to pick up the job?
No, I did not.
No,
I did not. It was my first time reading through it as I did it. So.
and you hadn't read any of my other works as well. I'm assuming as well.
No, I haven't.
So what attracted you to the job then? I obviously I put out there narrating, and I put a chapter for people to read to do an audition and stuff. So what kind of gravitated you saying, "Oh, this sounds like something that's really interesting for me to do"?
I would say the description that you put in there, it had me intrigued, and what really drew me in was the length of the book. Because your book is one of the longest I've done to date. I think only one other book is slightly longer than yours, and I thought it would be a good challenge for myself, and uh,
Sure.
yeah, doing the book, I genuinely enjoyed reading it as I did it, so, that always helps too, so but those 2 things were what really drew me in, the length and the description.
Yeah, it is a long book. My wife says I'm a little too wordy sometimes with my stuff, but I'm a big description guy when it comes to books, and this book had a lot of characters. I mean, I I mentioned this. I did a talk to a ladies book club this like a week and a half ago, and I was and they read one of my other series, my Jarvis Mann series, Tracking a Shadow instead, and it's only like a 210-page book. It's like 75,000 words, I think. And I was telling them about how the struggles I had to get the audiobook made, and you were the fourth person. And I said, well, it was a real challenge because I counted, and there's over 60 characters in this book. I don't think I ever finally came up with it, but there was at least 60 in here. Some are very minor characters that are only in for a short time, but the major characters are still, there's probably 25 or 30 that are in the lot of the book, a lot, including the Divine Devils team, which there's Hunter, Cameron, Athena, Shen, Kyoki, and then Amari joins later at the end, but and he actually becomes a full-time member, and Amari's in a wheelchair, so he's kind of becomes kind of the boss of the whole group. And then you had all the bad guys in there as well. Reinbach, who calls himself Brushstroke and stuff. So there were a lot of names, and I loved your Reinbach voice. It was great. It kind of
Thank you.
reminded me a little bit of uh, you did it with a German, right, accent, if I remember right. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking, it just kind of reminded me of the old spy type movies, the German bad guy, or even some of the old TV shows. I was always a big Get Smart fan and stuff, and Mel Brooks, and always had a lot of German characters a lot of times because he was always making fun of Hitler and stuff. So, but anyway, how was that challenge you had to deal with all those characters and trying to come up with your unique voice? Because that was one thing I said was, how are you going to be able to keep track of the voices going back and forth?
Um, well, when I first got into audiobook narration, I knew keeping track of so many accents for so many different books would be a challenge. So whenever I start a book, I have a recorder app on my phone, and I just whenever I come across a character that I haven't made a voice for yet, I take some time, imagine what they sound like, and I try to recreate that, and I record a sample of it so that I can always come back to that whenever I need they show up in the book again. Uh, doing Hunter. That I guess when I first started, you told me to check out SWAT, and I'm a big fan of SWAT, so I've already seen it. So I did have to go back and look at it to refresh my memory, and I kind of built his voice off of that. Uh, but everybody else, it was just it was just based on your description of them, whether they were black, white, Asian, or whatever, and um, are trying to come up with that. Now, the chief in the small town Hunter visited to look up Isaiah Sellers. Uh,
Right.
him and the waitress. I gave them sort of like a Canadian sort of northern accent, just like and I actually had to look that up on YouTube to try to get some references to how that would sort of sound. So a Fargo voice, kind of like that. So
Sure.
uh, um, and Reinbach, I say he was my biggest challenge because his not actually doing the accent, but his voice. Whenever I did his voice in it, after I rendered and did everything, his voice would somewhat echo in the recording. So I had to. That was the biggest challenge with him. It was like my filters would cut out so much of his voice that it would leave an echo. So I had to really work on that. But everything
Well,
else
and
was
you did a
just
digitized version of his voice too, because early in the book, when he was talking to people over a satellite phone, he was disguising his voice, and it was. I thought that was really good, and I'm assuming that you used some uh, studio magic to make that voice digitized.
I slowed down the voice, deepened the pitch, and just gave it like a digital filter to make it sound the way it did. So yeah, I was really proud of that. Like
Yeah, no, that came across real well. I thought that was. I really like that aspect. Um, that's always the challenge in audiobooks. Do you just read the book and not really do different voices, or do you want? And for me, I felt there's so many characters in there, they had to have somewhat unique. I mean, you can't make everybody sound totally different. I mean, maybe you can, but when you have that many different people, and the female voices, I'm sure were a challenge as well. Obviously, being a man, trying to do a female voice is always tough. You sometimes kind of reminded me, and I don't know if you're a George Carlin fan, but George Carlin, when he would do a female voice, um, you kind of had a little bit of that sound where it was. Um, I don't know. I don't want to say humorous, but it was like, yeah, that's a guy doing a girl's voice. I mean, there's just no way you can, it's hard. I mean, I can talk in a really high voice, but you know, it doesn't really it's tough. I mean, that's a real challenge unless you get a female partner. And I don't know if other audiobooks do that. I mean, one of the first groups one of the second person that I had doing it, they were a production company, and they were going to kind of do it like old time radio, where they were going to have 4 or 5 different narrators and stuff. But they just never came through and did the job for me. I don't know what happened. I, uh, I thought it was a unique idea to have 5 or 6 different people, so you could get a lot of different voices. And you had a woman who would do the woman's voice, and they had several different men and stuff. But it just didn't work out for whatever reason. They just couldn't meet my deadlines to get the book done. So, and stuff. But the female voices, that's always a challenge for a man to do, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I do get that a lot. That you can tell you're a dude trying to do a woman's voice. But I try to make those as unique and differentiating as I can. With Athena, I gave her somewhat of a deeper tone,
Right.
compared to like someone like Paige. And you just I don't know. I just try to stay within my range. I know that it sounds somewhat female, but at the same time, it's not just the same as any of the other female characters. But yeah, it is hard to pull off sometimes because that the throat box, it gets a little harsh doing that all the time. Uh,
Yeah.
but I worked with what I had.
Yeah. Well, and Athena, she was tough, and then we had Valerie as well, who was on the other side. She was tough and too, and her and Athena do battle at the end of the book. Well, they actually do battle a couple of times in the book,
Yeah.
in the final book, and no teasers. Valerie actually comes back at the end of the second book and is a big part of the third book in the series. So, um,
Wow. I was
um,
hoping for that. I was
yeah,
hoping.
yeah. Well, I had a lot of people saying, "Wow, I'm glad you brought Valerie back," but she shows up in the very last chapter of the second book, and then becomes a prominent has a prominent role in the third book. Like I said, I won't give any spoilers, but
I feel like there's
um,
a path of redemption there. That's what I'm feeling.
well, again, no spoilers, but that's a good possible guess here. You're going to get some little background of why Valerie is who she is in the third book, but it's for those out there who have read the first book and haven't gone to the second book. You really should. And the biggest thing, the Divine Devils is a 4-book series. I just released the fourth and final book in the series, and there's a long storyline backstory of Hunter and why he lost his job as a U.S. Marshal. There's a little bit of conspiracy there, and that gets resolved. That becomes a big backstory through. You get a little hints of it in the first book, but you get more of it in the second, third, and then the fourth book. It all gets resolved. Um, but he is definitely the main character, and I've had several people say Shamar Moore from SWAT. Is that who you based him on? And I'm like, well, not necessarily. Um,
He
I
does
was
look like
always
him on the cover.
well, and my cover artist, Mia, who does a great job. She actually found a stock photo, and that actually was a white guy that she made black, is what she told me. So she darkened up his skin, but he looked the part. And I had mentioned that, the goatee and bald head, shaved head. Well, his is shaved, but well, all that. And a lot of people say that, but I was always a big and Richard Roundtree just passed away. I was a big fan of the Shaft movies, and I'm old enough. I'm 64, so I'm old enough to remember the original Shaft movies and stuff. And of course, Samuel L. Jackson played his. Well, they said it was his nephew, but then in the next movie they said that he was actually his son. But I always like those strong, tough black characters. So I always think he's a bad mother. That's the great Isaac Hayes song. The great Shaft song, and I still listen to that to this day. And that's a absolutely fabulous soundtrack if anyone likes R&B. And Isaac passed away several years ago as well, but I always liked that type of character, and enjoyed that. So it wasn't necessarily based on Shaft, but that was where my background. And Hunter is tough, but he has a lot of frailties. He has a drinking issue, and he lost his job and all that. So he's a very, very tough, but he has a frail, and he has some weaknesses as well. Women is a problem, and all those other things, and he deals with that through the whole series. But people always ask me, Shamar Moore, is he the guy? And I said, well, yeah, but Denzel Washington would be perfect, but Denzel's too old now to play that character. I mean, Denzel would just kill that. And, he's great in the Equalizer movies as well. And Michael B. Jordan, I always said would be great too. All these people, as long as they're willing to shave their head, right? So that would be the biggest thing. But yeah, Hunter is definitely the big guy. So getting back to some of the questions for you here, but so and I don't think if I asked it, what about this I think we did answer what. So this is a long book. So how long did it take you to produce this? It's 100, almost 150, 60,000 words. Um, you did it pretty quickly. I mean, you were zipping them out. I was getting chapters, and you were telling me, well, I'm going to try to do like 20 here, and then I'll get them all produced, and then I'll upload them all at once. So, because I was going through having to listen through them all as well. So, but how long did it take to get all of it put together?
Uh, I'd say it took me about 3 months, from July, beginning of July to the end of September. So about about 3
Yeah. How many
years.
hours a day were you working on this?
Um, I try to work at least, I'd say at least 7 hours a day on it. At least.
Yeah.
It depended on whether or not I was recording or editing that day. Because when I'm, recording, I can do a lot more. Editing, it takes a lot more out of me. Just, going through, finding, any errors I made in the initial recording, fixing those, doing, running the filters like what I did with the digitized voice, or anytime somebody was speaking through a mic or something like that, just, the voice effects that I added. So it does take some time, and the longer the chapter tends to be, the more time it takes for the final rendering. Because I have a filter that cuts out any mouth sounds, because people don't want to hear me swallow or just, I don't know, just popping sounds. So I try to cut out as much as that as I can. So, but yeah. Most days, I tried to work on it at least 4 or 5 times a week, and, at least somewhere between 5 and 7 hours a day on it, so
Well, and you did yeah, I thought you did a great job of keeping me up to date and letting me know. That was one of my problems with some of the others too. It's like nothing gets uploaded for a week or two, and I'm like, okay, is anyone working on this? And you were like, hey, I'm just letting you know, I'm doing a whole bunch of chapters at once here, trying to get ahead and all that. And I thought you did a great job of keeping me informed, which is for me that's just the biggest thing is like, especially when you're doing this business relationship and you've never really met before and you're
right.
kind of doing it through messaging. That's always a challenge and stuff. um, so I thought that you did a great job of that, which it always can be a problem. So we had talked about the 60 characters and we talked about making them unique and stuff. So what other I'm looking at my questions here. So what are skills and talents do you feel you possess? Gee whiz, boy, I'm more writing it. That makes you a good choice to narrate books. What are your strengths for doing for others out there who may be looking for a narrator?
Um, well, like you heard from the book, I have a wide range of voices. I can do multiple dialects and accents. I do German, I do British, So There's a lot I could do, and I'm still really discovering my range because, like I said, I've only been doing this for a year, really giving this a go. But I really haven't run into an accent or a dialect I could not eventually come out with. If an author asks for something specific for a specific character, I try to make sure I can give them what they're looking for. If they work with me, tell me exactly what it is they are looking for and how exactly they want that. I research it and take the time to create that as best I can. So, yeah. Like I said, wide range of accents. I try to stay communicative because that's very important to me. Because I've dealt with authors who were not good on communication, just sent me an offer and did not say anything, nothing at all, and then they just disappeared on me. So I honestly, I have a very very strong distaste for that. So working with you and seeing how having a good rapport that we have through the messaging, that was a very important factor for me. Uh, and I also, I try to meet deadlines as best I can. If I get a contract and I know I'm, given the time range, I might not be able to meet it. I tell them I am upfront with the author about that. I can do this for you, but I cannot do it in that deadline. And if I know I can, then I make sure I stay on top of that and do what I did for you. So.
Yeah, that's great. So what do you look for in a book? Is there
Um,
certain genres you enjoy doing over others, or I mean, are you pretty open to pretty much everything? I mean, my book was a thriller, crime, obviously, pretty gritty book, but I'm sure maybe you've done. I don't know if you do romance, but
uh, actually, the first book I was contracted for was a romance novel.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I do those, but that's not specifically what I look for. I genuinely tend to like books more like yours, suspense and thrillers. I'm also a big fan of fantasy, and I don't know if you know about game lit or lit RPGs, but I'm a big fan of those.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I like that's the majority of my library right there.
Yeah.
Lit RPGs and cultivation books. Big fan of those. But like I said, I always love a good mystery and a thriller. I actually auditioned for another one a couple weeks ago. I've heard back from the author, but it's been some back and forth. But anyway, yeah. So those, I'm really open to anything, but I do tend to have a favorite, a favorite genre. So.
So you said you listen, you do a lot of audiobooks. You listen to a lot of audiobooks. Were you a big voracious reader as well when you were younger and read? And who are the authors that you enjoyed reading?
Um, let's see. I would say I was a big reader when I was much younger, but I sort of fell off when I got older.
Oh, your mic got muted there.
Can you hear me
Uh,
now?
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
somehow it got muted, whatever.
Um, but I would say favorite authors. Uh, I wouldn't really say I had a favorite author. I just, when I first started working, my first job was at Dollar Tree, and I just used to always pick up books whenever I got off work, and I would just be reading. And I was really big into fantasy then. Um, I wouldn't say I had a specific author that I was really into. I just, you know, I literally judge books by their covers. So
Yeah. I was gonna say, I was wondering if the cover was what got you to.
yeah,
And
so.
some fantasy books are can be quite long too. Talk about
Mm.
long books. They usually and that's a genre I talk to people all the time, and I'm always amazed at authors who do fantasy or sci-fi. They got way more imagination than I do, coming up with different worlds and races and everything else. It's just like, and how do you not copy over into someone else's, ideas and stuff? It's. I'm working obviously off of real world stuff that happens every day, and they're doing entirely new worlds and planets and different dimensions and whatever else. So those authors have a lot. I would imagine they have to spend, and I'm not a big outliner. I don't outline. I pretty much just kind of just write my books. But to keep track of all that stuff has got to be really challenging.
Oh, I'm sure they have Excel spreadsheets just covering everything that they have to keep track of. So
Yeah.
I imagine it's a hefty ordeal, but it's a
Would you do
big
it?
genre.
Would you narrate produce a fantasy type book like that as well? Have you done any like that so far?
Yes, my second book that I did, first one that was actually published, is a fantasy series called Mysteria by a UK author named Ellis Wood. So it was pretty good. I enjoyed it, and like you said, he had whole different worlds, different dimensions, just mythical creatures. So it's
You really had
yeah,
to challenge your the different voices with that, I'm sure.
I had to do a couple demon voices, so yeah, it was definitely interesting, but yeah, I enjoyed it though.
Was that a pretty long book also?
No,
No.
it was like close to 10 hours, but yeah, it was uh, ain't got nothing on yours.
Because mine is what, 15, 16 hours, something like that?
It's borderline 15.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty close to it. And the initial guess was 16 hours, so yeah.
Yeah, it's a long book, and books 2 and 3 are just as long, and 4 is just a hair shorter. It's like 360 some pages, the fourth and final one, but the others are still over 400 pages and right around the 150,000 word mark. So they're long books as well. So um, if we decide to go forward and do more, which I hope, I mean, I really want to. I mean, everyone talks about audiobooks and how popular they are. I just haven't gotten enough. From the previous, my other series, I have two other ones. I just haven't had enough downloads and stuff like that. So yeah, can continue to work. I mean, this one was an award winner, so I'm hoping hopefully we'll be maybe do a little bit better. We'll see how it goes. I'm been handing out some promo codes, so we'll see how the reviews go. So, what type of equipment do you use for your recording? I mean, it looks to me it's a little blurred there in your camera, but it looks like you've got a mic and all that.
Yeah, I got a Blue Yeti mic. Got my laptop. I use Audacity audio software. Uh, I got my tablet, which I always read my manuscripts from. Got a pop filter and yeah, and external hard drive to keep all the recordings on. So
Because they can be quite large, I'm sure. Some of the chap, plus you're doing editing and cutting and
yeah, it can
keeping
take
track of
up
all
quite a bit of space, but none of my books have really made a dent in the memory of the external hard drive. But you know, I'm only like 3, 4 books in, so
that.
we'll see what happens when I get to say 100 or so. So
Yeah, well, and audio compression. I don't know. Is audio files, are they like, and I'm an IT person, I should know this, but obviously MP3 is got compression levels and you have different bit weights and all that. But do you do when you record, you like a raw version and then you compress it down from there, or how does that work?
yeah, I do a
Mm.
raw version first, and
So
then I edit and cut it down from there. So I
kind of
mean, I
like
know.
photos, like pictures are the same way, raw, and then you change them to TIFF or JPEG or whatever the smaller sizes.
Yeah, that's how I roll.
Yeah. Okay. So, and let's see here. And you got future projects on the horizon?
I actually just finished a cultivation book just about a week or so ago. So I'm waiting to hear from the author on that and get it reviewed so that I can get pushed out. Um, I don't know. I mean, we were just talking about sci-fi books, but I don't know if you've heard of Hawksbill Station uh, by classic sci-fi writer Robert Silverberg, but he wrote his initial book back in the '60s. But I'm doing his book for a publishing company
Oh,
called Three Ravens Publishing.
nice.
Yeah, they're having me do his novella and his novel for one audiobook. So I'm working on that, and then I have a fantasy series that I'm working with an author on. Uh, trying to get he wants to get it pushed out by New Year's. So yeah, so the work is there. So just yeah.
Well, publishing company, that's probably like real money. They probably are paying you, hopefully paying you good money for that.
Well, they're a small publishing company,
Yeah.
so I'm working with them on a royalty deal as of right now. But uh, they do want to have a continuing partnership with me. So as we both grow, um, just hoping that it'll be royalty checks and pay per hour eventually. So.
And does he have a pretty big following?
Uh, he has a pretty decent following. Like I said, they're not like one of the big publishing companies like Podium or
Right.
Athon, but they uh they do have a lot of indie authors, and they do have a lot of audiobooks out. So and they're looking out for new talent. That's how they ran across me. So uh yeah, they're building themselves up. So they go to a lot of conventions, especially the guy I'm in contact with. He goes to every Comic Con or author or reading convention or literary convention that is out there that he can at least travel to. So he's making sure he gets their name out there.
So they're gonna make you come with the author and come to some of the events he does, so they can meet the narrator producer of the audiobooks as well? Any of that coming up?
Uh, Not as of right now. I mean, he's asked me to come to conventions. He has,
Hmm.
but I I'm like I'm getting myself together financially. I was laid off a few months back from my full time job, and I'm just now getting another part time job so that I can continue working on the books at the same time, keeping myself financially stable.
Yeah,
So it's a work in progress, but I eventually do want to start hitting up a lot of conventions, especially where publishers and narrators tend to be, so that I can get my name out there in a bigger aspect. So that is something I want to do. I just want to be in a place to do it.
yeah. Well, I understand how that is. When I was your age, I went through the same thing. Fortunately, um, relatively financial stable these days. Keeping fingers crossed, but I know when I was in your age, I was in and out of jobs at times and stuff, and struggling for it before I was ever married and stuff. And fortunately, these days, my wife has a good job, and I'm able to pick and choose my IT jobs and continue to spend the time writing, because it is a very time consuming process. Writing is a time consuming. Obviously, what you're doing is very time consuming as well. If we, as I tell people, if we didn't have to sleep, we could get a whole lot more done. But
Amen.
unless you're one of those that can go on 3 or 4 hours of sleep a day, which I am not. Um, and I've known people like that, and I have no idea how they do that. But I was one of those. So my wife asked a question. It's like, "Who's your favorite author?" But I think we kind of covered that. But you didn't really have a favorite one that really stood out to you. I was always a big um, um, Robert B. Parker fan. He did the Spencer series, Jesse Stone, Sonny Randall, female detective, and I've debated on doing a female private eye. My other series is the Jarvis Mann Private Eye series, and that's when I started. And Hunter, of course, was a former U.S. Marshal, and I'm actually got an idea for a third series, thanks to an idea my wife gave me, and I've not really spilled that out to the world yet. But that one I'm working on. He's going to be a former cop who travels in an RV and solves cold cases, is what it is. And there's some more background there and stuff as well. That series will come, probably won't be till next, at least the first one won't be till late next year, because I have a new Jarvis book. And like I said, I finished the Divine Bell. But I was a Robert B. Parker fan. I read all the Ian Fleming novels, the James Bond stuff. I was always big into the James Bond, Robert Ludlum, the Bourne series. And then I read all the Michael Connelly books. Now he does the Bosch, Lincoln Lawyer, Renee Ballard. I haven't read any of the Renee Ballard, but I always like the Lincoln Lawyer series. That's always was um, enjoyable. And he has a new Lincoln Lawyer coming out. I actually kind of like the Lincoln Lawyer more than the. I like the Bosch, but the Lincoln Lawyer I like better. And I have a lawyer in my series, which my Private Eye series, who actually crosses over um, into the Divine Devil series later on as well. I've kind of linked the two
Wow.
series a little bit. I had Hunter and Jarvis meet in a little short story that's only on my website, rweir.net, for anyone out there that has them in my website. And I may do some crossover of one of the Divine Devil's team members in the new Jarvis Man book, which I'm working on right now. So all that. So, well, tell people how to get in contact with you, sir, and your social media, all that exciting stuff. I know you said you're still kind of getting some of that set up. Social media.
Yeah.
I love and hate social media at the same time. It's such you have to have it, but there's so much junk out there that you just got to filter through it sometimes. But
Yeah, honestly, my social media presence is abysmal. Like you said, I'm working to get it up. For authors who want to get in touch with me about possibly narrating their series, you can email me at franklinpoliteprotocol@gmail.com. I know that's a mouthful. That's FranklinPoliteProtocol@gmail.com. And you can look me up on Instagram. That's Phil PHIL underscore BTHE underscore narrator. And you can find me on Facebook at Phillip Polite. So, like I said, I'm still working on that. I want to get a website up so authors can reach me on there and get a reference to my work as well. So I got a lot of work to do because I need to I need to
Doesn't happen
build my.
overnight,
No, it
unfortunately.
does not.
And unless you pay people to do it for you, which, obviously, mentioning your financial situation, you pretty much got to do it all yourself. So,
Yeah. But I enjoy the work, so as long as I enjoy it, it's not as aggravating to put it together. So yeah, but I do got some work ahead of me as far as building up my social media presence and getting my websites together. So yeah.
yeah. And people, if anyone out there, if you didn't get all that, you can always get a hold of me through my social media and my website. My website's just rweir.net. And I'm just author@rweir.net is my email address, and I'll be happy to put you in touch with Philip here. So your email says Franklin. Is Franklin actually your
No,
first name
no.
and Philip's your middle name?
No,
No?
no. Me and my best friend, we actually were in the process of starting a podcast about audiobooks
Yeah,
when I started the whole narration thing, and we made a business email and we used his last name, my last name,
gotcha.
as the for building the email.
And what's happening? Did that kind of fall to the wayside to try to do the podcast, or?
No, we've done a few recordings, we just haven't posted them. And he's been doing he's a YouTuber, so he's been working on that, and I've been working on the narration.
Mhm.
And we've just been struggling to find the time to get more out there.
Sure.
So
Well, everybody seems to be doing a podcast these days. I've kind of debated trying to do one myself, but if y'all ever want a guest, an author on there, you can always give me a holler. I'd be happy to come and talk. I enjoy doing podcasts. I've done quite a few through the years. Video ones. Some have been just audio ones. I've done a few radio interviews as well, which hasn't always made too much difference, but I still like talking. It's always fun talking books and narration and stuff. So,
that'd be
anything
awesome.
else? Anything on your side you wanted to say, or?
Oh, just that I genuinely enjoyed reading your book, like as I brought it to life. So and like I said, it was really great working with you. One of the best author experience I've had so far. Like I said, the communication was great between us. So just enjoyed that, and I hope I get to do the rest of the series because I
Well, I
really like.
definitely, I definitely would like you to do the rest of the series. We'll just have to see how the sales are and stuff, because I don't think you're going to want to do royalty share for forever on these if it's not making you any money. But
Right.
especially with all the time you're putting in and stuff. So, but that's one of those things. We'll see. We get through the holidays and stuff. But like I said, the first book won best thriller from Killer Nashville, and so did book two, also won best thriller. So I won best thriller back to back. So I've had some decent downloads at times. So we'll see how the audiobook goes. I'm still trying to figure out the best way to get more people to download the books as well. And there's so much competition out there. That's always the biggest challenge. But I agree with you 100%. I enjoyed working with you, especially after the issues. You know, they say third time's the charm. It was a fourth time with this one. So, but I'm glad you stuck with it and did an updated one. And I know he listened to it, and my wife was, oh no, he sounds good. And I know it was a real challenge. And to tell you the truth, the other books are going to be a challenge as well, because there's going to be a lot of diverse voices in there. I have a lot of diverse characters in my series, and it can be a challenge. I know when I was talking to the book club, the lady goes, 60 characters. Oh my gosh. She says, I was having to write down the 200-page book to keep track of the characters you had in there because I was having a hard time. How did anybody keep track of all that stuff? But it always makes it, for me, it makes it interesting. I always like to try to write different voices and different characters, and like I said, a lot of diversity in my stories to keeps it from being boring to me as well as a writer, because you can't write the same characters over and over and over again. It might work for publishing companies because they figure, well, you've got that's the voice, you need to use that same voice over and over again because you keep selling books. But as an author, that gets boring for me, and that's one of the things I enjoy about being independent is I get to make those decisions and not have anybody telling me anything. So yeah, so well, great, Philip, it was great meeting you. I enjoyed talking. I don't know if we had anybody listening in, but I'll get this video once it's rendered and everything. I'll post on my Facebook, and I'll get you a copy one way or another if you want, and yeah, you can put it on your Instagram and your website when you get your website set up. I know you can get websites, basic websites, pretty inexpensively these days. But if you want to have an actual domain with your name, then you're going to have to pay for the domains. I don't know, $50-$60 a year or something like that, which I did eventually, rweir.net. Unfortunately, there was no rweir.com. Somebody else had that one. So we had to go with rweir.net. So maybe one day I'll own all of them if I can afford it. So. But thank you, sir. Appreciate you coming on today. And hopefully we'll get to chat again down the road. We'll get through the holidays and we'll see how the sales are. But I'm definitely interested in working with you on future projects in the series.
Me too. I just wanted to say, you know, I don't know if you tried Reddit as far as like getting your book out there, but Reddit has a lot of subreddits, including like mystery and crime thriller books. You know, it's a good place for authors and narrators to spread the word about their books. So
okay, yeah, I've not haven't done Reddit. I used to use Twitter, but Twitter is such a mess these days. So I kind of went in and I started thinking about, well, I might use Threads, and Threads now has become just as political as Twitter is. So, and I've never been big. Everyone says to do TikTok, and I'm like, TikTok. It's like recording videos and stuff. It's one of those things I probably want to do. I know there are many authors out there that have had a lot of success with TikToks and short videos. And there's what Threads, I think, is Facebook's version of TikTok, which is I may start trying that. But no, Reddit I haven't. So yeah, I'll have to look into that. Reddit, I think, has been around forever, hasn't it? I'm thinking that's like one of the really early ones. I'm surprised that's still such a popular one. But I guess I'll have to dig into that a little bit. And you can, if I have questions, I'll be sure to come to you. You can be my Reddit expert. How's that?
Sounds good. Sounds good.
All right, Philip. Well, appreciate it. It's great meeting you face to face. Well, at least digitally on a camera.
Right.
Take care. We'll be talking to you down the road.
All right. Same to you.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody. Appreciate it. Be sure to check out Philip. I think he did a great job on the book. I think he'd be a great author, narrator for anyone looking for narrators. Everyone have a great Sunday.